Hello, I'm Dr. Charlie Collins. Let's talk about research methods. Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to research methods in the social sciences. I will discuss four major steps of social science research and the four major approaches. I will outline each of these in general terms and then provide a more concrete example throughout that highlights each of these steps and approaches. To understand research methods, it's important to understand the underlying process of research. What I mean by the underlying process is the steps that it takes to successfully conduct research in the social sciences. There are four major steps in conducting research: formulating the research question, preparing the research design, collecting the data, and analyzing and interpreting the data. Before we jump into the research process, let's start with our running example. For this example, we're going to use one of the most famous or infamous experiments in the history of psychology, the Stanley Milgram obedience study. Go to YouTube and type in Milgram obedience study to see the study in action. After World War II, Milgram wanted to understand how individual people, like Nazi soldiers, could carry out such atrocities. He had a hunch that it could be due to the social nature to obey to authority. So what he did was bring research subjects into a room and try to get them to apply electrical shocks to research Confederates simply by having an authority figure ask them to do so. What he found is that even if research subjects protested against giving shocks, they would often continue if the authority, the quote-unquote authority in the room, asked them to do so. When conducting research, the first and perhaps the most crucial step is formulating the research question. It is the most important step because it sets up the rest of the research process. Often, when novice researchers are formulating research questions, they begin with a more general question that needs to be developed into something more specific. The narrowing from a general topic into a specific question should be informed by theory and the academic literature on that research topic. As researchers become more experienced, this narrowing gets easier because experienced researchers are more familiar with the research in a particular area. For Milgram, he already knew the authority and conformity literature in psychology, but still he moved from a more general research question like, how would Nazi soldiers carry out atrocities, to a more specific question like, if an authority figure asked someone to apply electric shock to somebody else, would they do it? For step 2 of the research process, you should design your research, which includes the who and the what of research. Because all steps of the research process depend on all previous steps, this step of research is shaped by our research question. The what includes what it is you are going to study. In the case of Milgram, he wanted to study conformity, so he had to create a design that could measure something as ambiguous as conformity. The who includes the people or groups you are interested in studying. Cultural anthropologists may want to study certain South American tribes, for example. Milgram, on the other hand, was more interested in the quote-unquote average white male, since at the time they made up the majority of the military personnel. The third step in the research is data collection. There are four broad approaches to collecting data: experimental, survey, qualitative, and secondary data analysis. These approaches are not mutually exclusive, meaning researchers can use various approaches in conducting their research. Experiments allow researchers to manipulate an environment to see how those changes will influence subjects. Surveys ask research subjects about their opinions, perceptions, and/or behaviors on a particular topic. Qualitative research observes or interviews research participants to obtain non-numerical data. An existing or secondary data analysis is the analysis of data that was not directly collected by the researcher. So, in other words, it was collected by somebody else. Milgram, considering his research question and design, elected to utilize an experimental method for his research, which enabled him to manipulate the environment to see how it affected subjects. The fourth and final step is the research analysis and reporting of the data. Data analysis is completely dependent upon the type of data the researcher collects. Both quantitative and qualitative forms of data analysis can be very complex. Those advanced forms of analysis go beyond this series. We will discuss these forms in general later in this series. Because Milgram used an experimental design, which is most often quantitative, he analyzed his data quantitatively, which produced numerical descriptions of his study. That is all we have for this discussion on research methods. By now, you should be familiar with the 4 major steps in conducting research, which includes formulating research questions, preparing the research design, collecting data, and analyzing and interpreting the data. You should also be familiar with the 4 approaches to research methods, which include experimental, survey, qualitative, and existing data analysis. Thank you for watching. I'm Professor Collins. See you next time.